Let us talk about the great American delusion of the mountain town. 3 years ago, every single person with a remote tech job, a Patagonia fleece, and an inflated sense of their own survival skills decided they were going to move to the mountains. They were going to chop their own wood. They were going to start a localized podcast about foraging. They bought a cabin sight unseen for double the asking price because money was essentially free. And they watched too many lifestyle influencers monetizing pine cones on the internet. But the universe is a very funny way of restoring economic balance. The corporate overlords finally sent out the dreaded return to office email. The passive income empire suddenly realized that normal people absolutely refuse to pay $500 a night to scrub toilets. And do someone else's laundry on vacation? The great mountain town exodus has officially begun. And for the first time in half a decade, the locals and the patient observers are finally seeing something absolutely wild. Price drops. Massive, glorious price drops. Let us get into it. Here's the harsh reality that the real estate seminars and investment gurus absolutely refuse to tell you. The mountain town housing market was never actually built on normal, working-class people buying houses to live in full-time. Over the last few years, it was built on a chaotic, highly leveraged mixture of pandemic panic buying and greedy investors wanting to run unregulated shadow hotels. But the math abruptly stopped working. Short-term rental vacancy rates are skyrocketing in these high-altitude tourist traps right now. The guests got completely sick of the absurd cleaning fees and the chore lists, so they went back to booking normal hotels. Now, the speculative investors are bleeding cash every single month because their luxurious frame cabin, with the string lights, is sitting totally empty for weeks at a time. Concurrently, local governments woke up from their slumber. They looked around, realized their teachers, nurses, and firefighters had literally nowhere to live and started passing massive, aggressive restrictions on short-term rentals. So what happens when an over-leveraged investor panics because they can no longer run a shadow hotel, and the remote tech worker is forced to move back to San Francisco? They dump the property. They list it. It sits there for 60 or 90 days because interest rates are high. And then you see that glorious green arrow on Zillow pointing straight down. Price reduced. We are not talking about pennies here. We are talking about tens of thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars being shaved off asking prices, just to offload the bleeding asset. Outsiders completely misunderstand these places. They think living in a mountain town is a perpetual ski vacation. But the reality involves brutal mud seasons, frozen pipes, and incredibly expensive groceries. When the fantasy wears off, the inventory piles up. It is officially a buyer market if you know exactly where to look. Here are 10 mountain towns where the housing bubble is actively and beautifully deflating. Number 10. Reno. Reno is the city that legally has to remind you it is not Las Vegas every time you visit. But it sits right next to some of the absolute best skiing in North America. The housing hangover here is incredibly real. Houses that were completely and artificially inflated to the $800,000 range by investors hoping to capture Lake Tahoe. Overflow are now getting aggressively slashed down into the $500,000 territory. The lifestyle here is deeply fascinating. You get the gritty, neon-soaked charm of an older casino town seamlessly combined with a 30-minute drive to the pristine wilderness of the Sierra Nevada. It is an incredibly weird cultural mashup where you can play a penny slot machine in a dark room at 4 in the morning and then go paddleboarding on a crystal-clear alpine lake at sunrise. The downside is that you still live in Reno. The desert summers are punishingly hot. The lingering casino culture can feel deeply depressing if you are not in the right mood for it. And the air quality during the late summer wildfire season will actively make you question all of your major life choices. It is the absolute perfect place to buy an affordable mountain-adjacent home, assuming you do not mind that your local grocery store has a section dedicated entirely to cheap prime rib buffet tickets. Number 9. Flagstaff. Arizona. Flagstaff is the town you move to when you want to claim you live in Arizona, but you also aggressively hate the desert and everything about it. We are seeing massive inventory increases hitting the market right now. Standard 3-bedroom homes that were holding the line at $900,000 during the peak madness are quietly settling back into the high sixes and low sevens as demand completely evaporates. It is a stunningly beautiful college town, surrounded by the largest contiguous ponderosa pine forest on the entire planet. The air literally smells like vanilla. The mountain biking is world class, and the local brewery scene is fantastic. You get for very distinct, beautiful seasons, which completely confuses every single tourist visiting from Phoenix, who showed up in shorts in December. The downside is the crushing reality of the altitude. You are sitting at 7,000 feet above sea level. This means that simply baking a cake becomes an advanced scientific experiment, and trying to run a single mile feels like breathing through a wet sponge. For your first 3 months in town, it is an amazing place to finally afford a house, as long as you highly enjoy politely explaining to your extended family that yes, it does actually snow in Arizona. Before we move on to number 8, I'm genuinely curious. Have any of you noticed prices dropping in your local mountain towns? Or are the investors still holding on for dear life? Drop a comment down below with what you are seeing in your own neighborhoods. It helps everyone figure out where the market is actually moving, and it really helps the channel out. If you are enjoying this breakdown, maybe hit the like button. Let us keep going. Number 8. South Lake Tahoe. California's Lake Tahoe is currently providing a beautiful, nationwide masterclass in what happens when the local working class finally gets completely fed up with investors ruining their neighborhoods. The median home price has been taking absolute hits lately, dropping by double-digit percentages over the last 12 months. You can actually find a normal, non-mansion home hovering around the $600,000 mark, which is a miracle for California. You are living directly on the shores of one of the most famous, breathtaking alpine lakes in the world. The skiing is legendary, the pine trees are massive, and the summer lake days are basically the stuff of California legend. It is an outdoor paradise built for people who want to be outside all day every day. The catch here is highly legislative. The city voters passed Measure T, which aggressively restricted short-term rentals in residential neighborhoods. The out-of-town investors panicked and started offloading their properties immediately. The other massive downside is the traffic. During a holiday weekend, moving your car 3 blocks to get coffee might take you an hour and a half of pure gridlock. Come for the incredibly discounted alpine cabins. Stay because you are literally trapped in a blizzard on Highway 50, surrounded by 10,000 tourists in rental cars without snow tires. Number 7. Durango. Durango is the town you pretend you live in when you actually just live in a generic, flat suburb in Denver. It is the authentic, rugged cowboy mountain town ideal that everyone wants. The peak madness of pandemic pricing is finally over. Properties that were flying off the market for well over $1 million are now sitting completely untouched, leading to desperate price cuts pushing them back down into the $700,000 or $800,000 territory where they belong. It sits perfectly in the Animas River Valley and feels like stepping directly onto a Wild West movie set. You have the historic narrow-gauge railroad puffing smoke through town, incredible mountain biking trails, and a local culture that aggressively values outdoor recreation over literally everything else, including career advancement. The isolation is very real and very daunting. Durango is not close to anything. If you need a major airport to fly anywhere, you are embarking on a massive, multi-hour road trip just to get to the terminal. The local job market is also heavily dependent on the tourism industry, meaning that, outside of a remote work setup, making a decent living is incredibly tough. You can finally buy that historic riverfront property you always wanted, which is great because you will definitely need to catch your own fish, just to offset the absurd cost of groceries in a tourist town. Number 6. Coeur d'Alene. Idaho. Coeur d'Alene is the specific place where highly paid tech workers fled when they decided they wanted lower taxes, lots of lakes, and to never look at a coastal city ever again. The housing market here was basically strapped to a speculative rocket ship in 2020, but that rocket completely ran out of fuel. Prices are aggressively correcting right now, with luxury lake-adjacent homes routinely seeing price reductions. of $200,000 or more as the exodus begins. The lake itself is massive, pristine, and stunning. The summers are basically flawless, filled with boating, hiking, and a very clean, resort-style downtown area. It feels exactly like a private country club that accidentally expanded into a whole municipality. The winter is an entirely different, highly depressing beast. It gets incredibly dark, very cold, and the glorious, vibrant lake town energy completely vanishes for 6 straight months. Also, the local politics are notoriously intense and vocal, which might be exactly what you want or exactly what you want to avoid depending on your worldview. It is a phenomenal place to buy the dip in real estate. Just make sure you budget heavily for seasonal affective disorder light bulbs. For your new living room, number 5, Whitefish. Montana Whitefish is the town that decided to base its entire municipal identity and economy on being dangerously close to Glacier National Park. The short-term rental market here got completely oversaturated, with out-of-state people building tiny, impractical frame cabins just to rent them on the internet. Now those folks are liquidating their assets. You can actually find a normal, livable home here for around $600,000 if you are patient. And wait for the price drops. You have a world-class ski resort right above the town, and one of the most visually stunning national parks on Earth sitting in your literal backyard. The local restaurants are surprisingly great for a small town, and the community is deeply protective of its rugged mountain culture. You will spend 3 solid months of the year dealing with massive, impenetrable crowds of tourists in rented SUVs who have absolutely no idea how to navigate a roundabout. The town gets completely overrun, the restaurants are entirely booked, and the grocery store becomes a chaotic battleground. You get a massive discount on a beautiful mountain home, and all you have to do is survive the annual summer invasion of people trying to take selfies with aggressive, unpredictable wildlife. Number 4, Bend. Oregon Bend is the undisputed craft beer capital of the remote work era, filled entirely with people who own very expensive mountain bikes and very energetic, highly trained dogs. The remote worker exodus has hit Bend incredibly hard, as major companies demand people return to the office. Homes that were effortlessly asking for $1 million 2 years ago are now enduring multiple, painful price cuts, settling closer to the $700,000 range. The access to the outdoors is almost ridiculous. You have the Deschutes River cutting right through the middle of town. Mount Bachelor is a very short drive away, and the high desert climate gives you an absurd amount of sunny days per year. Compared to the rest of the Pacific Northwest, the town grew way too fast for its own municipal infrastructure to handle. The roads get massively backed up during rush hour. The local trails are increasingly crowded with people playing music on Bluetooth speakers, and the wildfire smoke in late summer can blanket the entire region in a thick, toxic haze for weeks at a time. It is a perfect market for a patient, strategic buyer, assuming your ultimate dream is to sit inside your newly affordable house, while the outside air quality is currently rated as hazardous. Number 3, Steamboat Springs. Colorado Steamboat Springs is the affluent ski town that desperately wants you to know. It is also a real, authentic ranching town with real, working cowboys. Condos and townhomes are getting absolutely hammered here in the best way possible for buyers. Inventory is rapidly piling up as short-term rental regulations tighten the grip on investors, pulling median prices down by massive chunks. You can actually find a decent two-bedroom place in the $600,000 range right now. They literally trademarked the phrase champagne powder, because the snow quality here is legitimately absurd. You have natural hot springs, a fantastic, walkable downtown, and a local energy that feels far less pretentious and overly manicured than places like Aspen or Vail. It is famously incredibly difficult to get to. The drive from Denver involves traversing treacherous mountain passes that routinely close during heavy winter storms. You are essentially committing to being completely snowed in on a regular basis, and shipping anything to your house takes an eternity. It is an incredible place to buy a highly discounted ski condo, as long as you do not mind that your basic morning commute to the local grocery store might require a snowmobile and a silent prayer. Number 2, Truckee. California Ettrick was the ultimate, frantic safety valve for Silicon Valley millionaires who wanted an isolated cabin during the pandemic. And now those cabins are largely sitting completely empty. We are seeing massive inventory dumps on the market. Multi-million-dollar properties are seeing $300,000 price cuts. And the lower end of the market is finally becoming accessible again. In the $700,000 to $800,000 range, you are high up in the Sierra Nevada mountains. The historical downtown is charming. The proximity to various world-class ski resorts is completely unmatched. And the summer hiking is phenomenal. It is an outdoor playground perfectly designed for the highly driven and highly active. The snow here is not a joke or a gentle dusting. They measure it in feet, not inches. You will spend hours digging your car out of your driveway. Your back will hurt constantly. And the utility bills required to keep your house warm during a harsh winter will make you weep openly. You can finally get a sweet deal on a beautiful Sierra Mountain home, which leaves you plenty of extra cash to pay the guy who has to professionally plow your roof, so the house does not physically collapse. Number 1. Bozeman. Montana. Bozeman is the undisputed heavyweight king of the pandemic housing bubble, a town that was completely ruined by the television show Yellowstone and is now facing a massive, hilarious reality check. The crash here is spectacular to watch. Speculators who bought generic, poorly built suburban houses for over $1 million are desperately slashing prices. We are seeing 20% drops on asking prices across the board. The speculative frenzy is completely dead. It is a rapidly growing city with a major university, situated in a gorgeous, sprawling valley surrounded by towering mountains. The fly fishing, skiing, and hunting are legendary. It has a busy airport that connects you to almost everywhere, making it highly convenient for a mountain town. The soul of the town has been severely, perhaps permanently damaged. The locals were completely priced out by out-of-state money, creating massive social tension. The daily traffic on 19th Avenue is a complete nightmare, and the winter lasts roughly from October until late May. It is easily the best place in America to watch an over-leveraged real estate investor cry, which makes buying a discounted house here right now deeply satisfying. The mountain town housing market is finally waking up from a multi-year fever dream. The era of the digital nomad buying up all the local housing inventory with cheap tech money, and a dream of passive urban income is officially collapsing in real time. We are witnessing the beautiful, brutal reality of geographic arbitrage correcting itself. But you have to acknowledge the very real risks before you pack your bags. A cheaper mortgage does not magically erase the reality of mountain living. You are still dealing with brutal, relentless winters. You are still dealing with intense geographic isolation. You are still dealing with an economy that completely relies on tourists showing up and buying expensive lattes. If you move to these towns, you have to actually want to live in them, not just profit off them. So here is my final question for all of you. With prices finally dropping back down to earth, would you actually pull the trigger and move to one of these mountain towns today? Or are you going to sit back, grab some popcorn, and wait to see just how low these investors are willing to drop their prices before they completely fold? Let me know your strategy in the comments. Do not forget to subscribe if you want to keep tracking this absolute circus of a housing market. And I will see you in the next one.